So semi-retired Kevin Durant will be making historically efficient jump shots next season for the San Antonio Spurs.
Skip Bayless talks about Kevin Durant retiring with the Spurs. Check out what he had to say, and then I'll come back with my comments.
The future of Kevin Durant. Next year, I see Kevin Durant in San Antonio. Allow me to explain.
Breaking news.
Now, as you might know, Kevin has blasted me for this opinion, and I have repeatedly offered him the opportunity. Come on this show. Refute me.
He's not going on the show,
He's
bro.
afraid to try because he knows deep down I am right about all I'm about to repeat. I believe he's mentally, psychologically, and emotionally semi-retired when it comes to prioritizing goals. He wants to continue to work hard on his craft as a shooter, but he no longer has as his primary goal leading a team to a championship.
That could be true. Maybe he's at a point in his career. He knows he has about 2 to 3 years left at this level to what he can contribute to a team, a winning team. So maybe he was like, you know what? I got all my championship winning 5 and 6 years ago with the Golden State Warriors. Had opportunities at other stops, but at the end of the day, if you're KD, do what you got to do. If you can win a championship, cool. But at this point, you already proved it. You proved that you're a top 10, top 20 player of all time. So at this point, try to collect as much money as you can over the next 3 years and retire into the sunset. But Skip does have a point. Maybe KD gave up on his championship goals.
He was back-to-back finals MVP. He led Golden State to back-to-back championships on the court, even though he really wasn't much of an intangible leader for the Warriors, whose real leaders, of course, were Steph and Steve Kerr, and to some extent, Draymond Green. KD was no leader in Brooklyn, and he's been no leader in Phoenix, so it's no coincidence. His playoff record of 6-13 over the last 4 years is the worst postseason winning percentage of any player over that time span.
I know a lot of people, they go into KD's leadership, but at the end of the day, if you want to go back to the Warriors situation, yeah, he may not have been yelling at teammates trying to rally the troops, but without KD on the Golden State Warriors, they're not champions again after losing to the Cleveland Cavaliers, giving up that 3-1 lead. So he was able to help the Warriors retain that dynasty. I know things didn't work out in Brooklyn and things aren't going good in Phoenix. I know his playoff record isn't good, but we can't sleep on KD like he's not that guy. Not everyone's vocal. He leads by example, but his leadership has been called in question.
Remember, the Celtics swept him and his Nets in his last playoff series in Brooklyn. And then he and his new team, the Suns, did manage to beat the Westbrook-led Clippers, who were mostly without Kawhi and completely without Paul George. That was 6 games.
Yeah, that wasn't happening.
And once CP3 pulled his hamstring again, KD and company lost to Denver in 6. Remember that? Then KD and company got swept by Minnesota last year and fell 3 games short of the play-in this season.
Skip crashing
Even
out.
though KD did play 62 games this past season, this year's Suns went 36-46. What?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Phoenix. You would think with Beal, with Booker, with KD, they would at least be a top 6 seed and force a first or second round exit. That team was bound to fail only because the injury of Bradley Beal, that was a bad look. So on paper, the team looks good, but in actuality with the injury statuses, random injuries, Beal sitting out with his injuries, it was just a bad look to begin with. Paying all that money for that team, they're going to have to get rid of Beal. KD's on the way out. What's going to happen with Booker? There's going to have to be a retool when it comes to Phoenix with that roster.
Kevin Durant will turn 37 in September. But give him this. Kevin Durant did average 27, 6, and 4 this season. What's more, he has averaged at least 25 points on 50% shooting and 40% on three-pointers in 3 straight seasons. That's the longest streak ever in the NBA.
That's a legend, man.
This season, he did shoot an NBA best on jumpers. He was 49.7% on jump shots. And on mid-range shots, he shot 53.1%. It's extraordinary. That was the best.
Go.
He also had the best shooting percentage on off the dribble jumpers. That was 50.9%. So bottom line, he doesn't really care much about playing defense like he used to. He doesn't have a burning desire to win championships like he used to. But does this 7-footer ever remain dedicated to a craft he has come as close to mastering as any player ever? That craft is jump shooting.
Yeah, KD's showing when he goes to another team, he can easily contribute between 24 and 28 points per game. Depends if he's going to be the first or second option. If he finds a team to where just play your game, similar to Golden State, maybe not that good, but you got players in place. All you got to do is make those crunch time baskets. When they're down by a few points, things are going bad offensively, you have that weapon in KD. So he's proven that, yeah, on the offensive end, he's still elite. Defensively, he's still 6'10", 7 feet tall, so he's still an active body, but he's not going to be able to body up these power forwards and centers, but you still have to account for him on defense. So KD looks like he has a few years left to be dominant on the offensive end.
That will still sell.
Of course.
So now, Have Gun Will Travel. That's a reference to a TV show that's probably way before your time, but Kevin Durant wants out of Phoenix as he knows that there's still a pretty robust market remaining for him out there. Yet, when I first saw his wish list, I immediately crossed off 3 teams: New York Knicks, Minnesota T-Wolves, Houston, those guys down there, the Rockets. No way he wants to be viewed as the savior for any of those 3 teams viewed as on the verge of winning their conference. Now, I know Mark Stein reported that the Knicks just aren't interested in Kevin Durant, probably because they just don't have the cap flexibility or the trade assets to acquire and then sign him to a new 2-year deal at, I don't know, 50, 60 million.
Yeah, KD in New York with the Knicks would have been a good look for him, but everything that they gave up to get Mikal Bridges, those multiple first-round picks to Phoenix, they pretty much overhauled their future. So now they don't really have any huge trade assets. They're not getting rid of Jalen Brunson, getting rid of Karl Anthony Towns for a KD at this point. Still some red flags, still some question marks. Do we want to get rid of a 29, 30-year-old for someone that's turning 37, be 38 next year? Is this a situation to where if you bring KD onto the Knicks, if you get rid of Karl Anthony Towns, does that guarantee you a championship? I think it kind of flatlines them, puts them right back where they left off. Still great offensively. Karl Anthony Towns isn't good defensively, so you pretty much got a better version on the offensive end, but I don't think the Knicks are going to do it. KD did throw some shots at New York before going to Brooklyn, so it's pretty much showing that KD has no interest with the Knicks, but don't be surprised if he ends up there.
And maybe the Knicks are smart enough in one capacity to see what I'm seeing in Kevin Durant, semi-retired desire to win championships.
Throwing shots, man.
But I also say there is no way Kevin Durant wants to inflict the pressure and expectations of the New York media on himself as the difference maker, as the game changer for the Knicks, as the best player on a team. It's close. No way. Too smart for that.
Yeah, that could be a strategic move by KD. Maybe not going to a huge market that's going to have a huge media attention. If he goes to Miami, that's going to have a lot of media attention. But he's going to be known as a savior. Pairing up with Hero and Bam, they need someone like a KD. So the narratives may be a little different on South Beach. If he goes to Minnesota, not a huge audience there as far as media coverage, but you got one of the best young players in the NBA in Anthony Edwards. Then with the San Antonio Spurs, same thing. Not huge media coverage, but you got the young phenom, future legend in Wemby. So he's going to pick a few teams to where he knows, okay, they really need me, but he doesn't have to be a savior. But at the same time, those individual teams that he's looking at could be a good fit for him. So KD's going to be very strategic with the next team he goes to.
He's too cagey, if I can use a basketball term. He already did New York. He did Brooklyn. He did the Nets.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he would consider Miami just because he wouldn't mind basing in South Beach. Miami would be the perfect place to semi-retire, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Expectations probably wouldn't be too high with the Heat. Certainly nothing like with the Knicks in New York City. Mecca, basketball, MSG.
Still got to win
But
in Miami,
the
though.
ideal last couple of seasons for Kevin Durant would be with the Spurs. With the Spurs. Very credible team on the rise without an immediate expectation of championships. In Victor Wembanyama's first two seasons, the Spurs were shockingly no factor at all, even though he was making an MVP case both times, really. And even though Stephon Castle was their second straight Rookie of the Year this past year. 22-60 in Wemby's first year. I kept saying, why is he impacting the scoreboard
numbers
more?
are bad.
34-48 last year. Even though they traded for De'Aaron Fox, and even though they had CP3 mentoring, quarterbacking, could have Chris Paul back again next season at age 40. They could have.
Yeah, KD going to the Spurs could be a good fit only because you got somebody there like a Wemby that's pretty much their franchise player. So KD doesn't have to worry about being that main guy, but he is expected to help this team get to the next level. 34-48. Could he flip the Spurs to a 50-win team? Could he give the Spurs an extra 15 to 16 wins? I do believe so. Think about how close some of those games were with the Spurs, but remember, they didn't have Wemby due to his blood clot situation diagnosis. So you got to factor that in to where the record didn't really get to the point to where they can win 40-plus games. De'Aaron Fox, I don't know if he had an injury. He may have sat out a few games. But at the end of the day, you bring KD in San Antonio, there'll be a 48-50 win team with KD on that roster. And he doesn't have to save the team. He just has to be a factor. Not the deciding factor, but they're going to turn to him when they need offense. When Wemby's cold, when they're double teaming him, coverages will be different with Wemby. They're respecting him each season. De'Aaron Fox, he can only do so much, still a solid point guard. They're expecting KD to at least, again, give them 15 to 16 wins and help them make the playoffs in that Western Conference. It's going to be interesting in that conference because teams are going to get better, a lot of shuffling with players, so KD could be a huge factor with the Spurs.
Even if they do trade for KD, as I believe they will, would anyone out there pick the San Antonio Spurs to win a loaded West this coming season? This next season?
50-50.
No way. I mean, think about it. OKC, Minnesota, Denver, Golden State, Houston, Dallas, Lakers, Clippers. I think I just gave you the playoffs. I mean, would the Spurs even be picked to make the playoffs, even with KD next season? Seriously, I asked you that question.
Again, it's going to be tough in the Western Conference, but I do believe he can help them win close to 50 games or plus 50 games. But it all depends on the health of Wemby, De'Aaron Fox. KD's not coming there with a decent roster and being the only person out there. So it's important that their two main players in Fox and Wemby, they got to be healthy. They got to play at least 65 to 72 games if the Spurs want to have a chance to be a top 6 seed. You don't want to be fighting in the play-in because every team 1 through 8 is going to be a huge factor. So you don't want to take any chances in the Western Conference. If you got an opportunity to at least be that 6th seed, you got to go all out. So health is going to be wealth when it comes to the Spurs making the playoffs.
So this is the perfect semi-retirement spot for Kevin Durant, semi-retired. He can be a big brother to Wemby, and he can pretty quietly work on his craft in small market, off-radar San Antonio with much of the focus on Wemby, with some of the focus on De'Aaron Fox. I mean, Kevin could sort of go along for a ride there for a couple of quiet, nice, pleasant, peaceful years.
Could be.
San Antonio, I love San Antonio. Great place to live. And do the Spurs ever have the assets to trade for Kevin Durant beginning this year with the number 2 overall pick and the number 14 pick in the first round? Would the Suns take this year's 14th overall straight up for Kevin? I don't know. Maybe they would.
You might as well.
The Spurs also have a couple of more in next year's draft. They have a couple of more and then a couple of more. They're loaded with picks. This deal can easily get done. So semi-retired Kevin Durant will be making historically efficient jump shots next season for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, KD going to the Spurs, retiring with the Spurs. I think that's pretty much going to be the huge thing. The next team KD goes to, he's most likely going to retire, especially if it's one of the teams on his bucket list. Now, if he goes to a team that really has no intentions on keeping him there, just a one-year rental, then we may be doing this all over again in 2026. But if KD lands with the Spurs, he's most likely going to retire, probably get that 2-year contract, making about 60+ million. I think that's what he's looking for with the next team. So the Spurs have draft equity. They have players. They can match contracts. They're the perfect fit as far as what KD wants and as far as what the Phoenix Suns want in return as far as trade assets, draft picks. So they're pretty much there. So they should be able to offer the Phoenix Suns the best offer for KD. So I don't think it would be any surprises if he lands up in the Spurs, and I don't think it would be any surprises if he retires with the Spurs. So Skip may have a point. Kevin Durant will retire with the San Antonio Spurs.